Some of the other issues that are being bandied about is casino gambling, video game gambling. It takes such a complex negotiation. You've got people that produce hay and alfalfa for horses that would benefit if some sort of a compromise was made. You'd have people like Duchessois, who owns Arlington Racetrack. You'd have people that are at the riverboat casinos that would be able to add these video gaming poker games. How do you decide which is right? How much gambling do we need? How much before you're saturated and you don't earn anymore?
These are great questions, Barrett. I'm glad you're bringing up the issues that our folks are talking about right now. And I'll tell you, I think gaming is something that we can seriously consider. I think the expansion of it is a good idea, but I only think it should be done if the revenue is going to go to fix the pension problem. I don't think people realize that we have an $86 billion deficit in that fund. You can't allow something like that massive, that's going to generate a ton of revenue year after year, and not mandate that money go to your biggest problem. I think you start with pensions. I think you put it in your education fund. There's so many, that's one of those sources of additional revenue, in addition to the progressive tax that I talked about, that can help fix some of these problems. So I think it's inevitable. I think it's just a matter of the legislature sitting down and making the tough decision. But I don't think you should expand gaming if you don't dedicate that revenue to pension fund and education.
When the state of Illinois adopted the lotto, they promised that all the money would go to education, and it has. But they've reduced the amount of money from the general revenue fund that went into education, so overall spending in education didn't go down. In fact, it probably in real dollars you'd be able to argue that it went down. With this type of proposal for gaming dollars to go to pensions, would it be just a replacement of dollars that were coming from the general revenue fund?
I certainly hope not. And Representative Chris Welch will be down there fighting to make sure that didn't happen. What you just described is basically what I call the great shell game. You know, folks don't realize lottery spending has gone up considerably. It's been breaking records year after year for the last few years. If the lottery money was truly going to education, without it being the education fund being reduced from the general fund, we wouldn't be in the problem that we're in. That's another thing that the state does, that if we fixed a fundamentally flawed tax structure, you wouldn't have to rob Peter and pay Paul over here. Mm-hmm. That's basically what we're doing.
Right.
You know, we're telling folks, hey, lottery money's for education, and you put it in there, but the money that you would get from the general assistance fund normally doesn't come.
Right.
So,
you know, it's kind of interesting. There's a large project that is going to be built by the tollway. It's the Elgin O'Hare Western Bypass. It's a $3.4 billion project.
Yeah.
It seems to be more and more difficult to fund expressways and to maintain them. It wouldn't surprise me if the tollway took over more and more of those roads. What are some of the condition of the roads in your district?
Our roads are atrocious. And one of the things that I've been advocating for is more road construction dollars. I know the state passed a capital bill a couple of years ago. It still hasn't been funded. One of the things that they're looking at doing is issuing debt in order to fund the capital bill. I completely support that, because if you just drive through the 7th District, the roads are in bad shape. I got roads in Hillside, I got roads in Maywood that need repair. And not only do you make the community look better, but you're bringing jobs to the community. Those construction jobs can help feed some families that right now are looking for jobs. So I think we really need to focus on things like road construction. That'll help be an economic engine. Mm-hmm. And make our communities look a lot better.
For those of you who have just tuned in, or you've been watching for a while, we're talking with Emanuel Chris Welch. He's running for state representative in the what district?
In the 7th District.
And on the ballot, your name is Emanuel Chris Welch?
Emanuel Chris Welch.
Even though people call you Chris Welch.
That's right. The Emanuel in my house is my dad.
Oh.
And he doesn't have a middle name, so we make that simple.
Now, as you mentioned Maywood and the streets, First Avenue was resurfaced last year or the year before, and it seems like that was one of those that really should have been rebuilt as opposed to resurfaced.
I agree. First Avenue is such a major street.
Yeah.
You have heavy vehicles like trucks that travel down it. That's something I think that should have had a complete rebuild instead of just resurfacing it. St. Charles Road in Maywood, from Maywood all the way into Bellwood, it's in bad shape. It needs to be rebuilt. I've been in that district my whole life. I think the roads are older than I am, and they look like it.
Yeah.
Roosevelt Road could probably, same thing. You're talking about some very heavily traveled roads and very, very heavy vehicles. So I think some tough decisions need to be made and some dollars spent.